Hey friends, tonight's story is slow, sleepy, and probably not what you were expecting. It's called How Cavemen Had the Best Sleep During Freezing Winters. Before you settle in, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I share here. And if you're listening right now, drop a comment to let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I always love seeing who's joining us from around the world. Now go ahead and dim the lights. Maybe switch on a fan for that soft background hum. And let yourself drift into tonight's peculiar little journey. You didn't just stumble into history. No, you wandered into something quieter, something slower. Tonight, we watch how cavemen, facing freezing winters and endless snow, mastered the art of warm, uninterrupted sleep. You open your eyes slowly, not because you are ready to face the day, but because your body has decided that a small shift in the air is worth noticing. The darkness around you is not the pitch black of total night, but the kind that has a faint grayness to it. The kind that suggests the sun is somewhere behind a thick wall of clouds and snow, thinking about rising, but in no hurry to do so. The air inside the cave is still heavy with the lingering scent of smoke from last night's fire. You feel it in your lungs when you take a slow breath, not unpleasant, just different from the crisp air outside. That air, you know, would scrape against the inside of your nose, freezing your nostrils together with every breath. In here, there is none of that sharp bite, only a dull reminder that the ice age is waiting just a few steps away. The ground beneath you is uneven but familiar. Weeks ago, it was bare stone, but now it is covered with layers of bedding you and the others prepared when the last leaves were still falling. First came the dried grasses, collected in great armfuls from a meadow, before the snow took it. Then moss, soft and springy, worked into the layers for comfort. On top of that are animal hides, their fur side facing up, each one telling a quiet story. The smoother deer hides feel almost sleek against your skin, while the thick mammoth hides are coarse and heavy, perfect for trapping warmth. There's even the faint trace of bison in the mix, a smell and texture you know instantly. Together, these layers make something that isn't exactly soft, but is enough to keep the bone-deep chill from sinking into you while you sleep. The air is cool, but the warmth of your own body, trapped under the furs, makes a small microclimate around you. Every time you breathe out, the heat gathers under the hide pulled up around your face, and you can feel it radiate back at you. It's a small thing, but in winter, small things matter. Outside, the cold is not just uncomfortable, it is dangerous, relentless, and always waiting for a chance to creep in. You've learned to build barriers against it, using every resource the land gives you. The bedding, the furs, the position of your body. All of it is part of the same quiet fight. Near the back wall of the cave, embers from last night's fire glow faintly beneath a layer of pale ash. They are not strong enough to send warmth to where you lie, but that isn't the point. Their real value is in the promise they hold, the ease of coaxing a flame from their slow heartbeat instead of fumbling with flint and kindling in the cold morning air. Letting the fire die completely is a mistake you make only once, and not if you can help it. Keeping those coals alive is almost a ritual, passed down as carefully as any story, and everyone in the group knows its importance. You roll slightly onto your side, pulling the edge of a hide up toward your chin. The fur brushes your cheek, rough in places, soft in others. A few stray hairs tickle your skin, but you don't bother to move them. Around you, the rest of the group is still deep in sleep, their breathing slow and even. Some are huddled together for warmth, bodies pressed close under a shared covering. Others sprawl in shapes determined less by comfort than by the available space on the cave floor. Now and then, someone shifts, an arm pulled closer to the body, a knee tucked in tighter, and the bedding rustles softly in the quiet. These movements are automatic, shaped by long winters, by the constant balance between keeping warm and keeping still. At the cave entrance, a curtain of animal skins sways faintly with the wind outside. Each small movement lets in a thread of cold, a creeping draft that snakes along the floor until it disappears into the shadows. You can imagine the world beyond that curtain without seeing it. The snow lying heavy over the land. The low sky pressing down, the air so still it feels like the earth itself is holding its breath. Out there, the cold is sharp enough to make your eyes water instantly, to make the skin on your fingers burn within moments. In here, the cold is something you know about rather than something you must endure. You curl your legs closer to your chest, fitting yourself into the hollow you've worn into the bedding. The depression matches the shape of your body now, molded by countless nights in the same position. It isn't perfect, but it feels like yours. A small piece of the cave that belongs to you in a season when nothing outside offers ownership or comfort. Your hip rests against a familiar lump of a buried stone beneath the hides. You don't move it. You've learned to ignore it, even to use it as a marker that you're lying in your place. The sounds in the cave are faint but constant. The occasional pop from an ember, the quiet rustle of furs, the low hum of wind through the entrance. Sometimes there's a soft cough from someone deeper in the shadows, or the shift of a sleeping body against stone. These noises form a kind of rhythm, a reminder that you are not alone in this cold, and that everyone here is bound together by the same need for warmth. In this world, survival is not silent. It's filled with these small sounds that, once you've grown used to them, become almost like the background of your dreams. You take a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly, letting the warmth pool under the hide again. The furs trap more than heat. They hold the memory of nights before this one, of storms weathered and hunts returned from. They are more than just covers. Of the quiet work that keeps you alive through the kind of cold that doesn't forgive mistakes. Your eyes begin to close again, pulled down by the weight of sleep. Outside, the light might be growing, though it is hard to tell in the gray stillness of winter. There will be tasks to do. The fire will need coaxing. Food will need checking. The snow at the entrance may need clearing. But for now, all of that can wait. You let your body sink deeper into the nest you've made, the hides folding around you like another layer of stone, another layer of the cave itself. Somewhere far away in the snow-covered valley, a branch cracks under its frozen weight. The sound reaches the cave as a dull echo, softened by the thick air. No one stirs at it. The wind sighs again, pressing briefly at the entrance before fading. Inside, the quiet returns. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm of those around you, until you are once again hovering in that space between waking and sleep. This is the Ice Age bedroom. Not warm by the standards, not soft by any measure, but exactly enough to keep you here, safe in the stillness, while the winter does its work outside. When you think about caves in the Ice Age, you might imagine them as cold, damp, and unwelcoming. The sort of place you would only hide in if you had no better option. And that is true in one way. Caves were not cozy in the way a warm cottage might be today, but in a world where the wind could strip the heat from your body in minutes. They were the closest thing you had to a shelter built before you were born. You didn't have to cut down trees, stack stones, or shape clay. The earth had already done all of that work for you over thousands of years, leaving you with walls, a roof, and sometimes even a natural curve that made the space feel like a nest rather than just a hole. Outside, the air is in constant motion, curling around ridges, sweeping through valleys, pulling heat away from anything that tries to hold onto it. Inside a cave, that movement is broken. The rock forms a barrier against the wind, and while it can't stop the cold entirely, it slows it down. A steady, biting wind can feel like a living thing, but once it hits stone, it dies into nothing more than a faint whisper. This is why Even a cave that feels chilly at first can seem warm compared to the world outside. The temperature inside does not rise much, but more importantly, it does not drop with every gust of air. In the Ice Age, stability like that is rare. The walls themselves hold their own secrets. During summer, they absorb some warmth from the sun, and though the effect is small, it lingers longer than you might expect. In winter, they give back just enough of that stored heat to take the edge off the worst cold. The rock does not shiver when the wind rises. It does not freeze the way your skin does. It simply endures, holding its temperature with a stubborn patience that you learn to trust. You can lean your back against it and feel something solid that will not change overnight. There is also the matter of space. A cave's interior is shielded not just from wind, but from snow and ice. You might still see frost form on the walls near the entrance. Tiny crystals sparkling faintly in the dim light, but deeper in the ground stays dry. This means your bedding, the grasses, the moss, the hides, can last much longer without needing to be replaced. In the open, snow would melt under you during the day and freeze again at night, turning the ground into a slick, hard mess. Here, it remains the same, night until the season changes. The entrance of a cave works like a natural choke point. You can block it with skins, with branches, or even with snow itself, packing it in to slow the air even more. The smaller you can make that opening, the easier it is to keep the warmth from escaping. The rest of the world is ruled by the sky, by wind and open air. But in a cave, you can decide how much of that you let in. It's like having a door, though you never had to build it. If you listen carefully, you can hear how different the world sounds in here. Outside, the wind carries every noise. The crack of ice on the river, the call of a distant animal, the creak of branches under snow. Inside, those sounds are muted, turned into faint echoes that reach you as if from a great distance. In this way, the cave is not just a physical shelter, but a mental one. The storms may rage outside, but here they are reduced to background murmurs. That quiet is its own kind of insulation, one that keeps the sharpness of winter from settling in your mind. Over time, you learn the habits of the cave itself. Some drip water steadily from the ceiling, marking the passing seconds in the dark. Some hold drafts that shift with the season, warmer in autumn, colder when the snow piles high outside. You learn where to place your bedding so that the cold doesn't creep under it, and where to build the fire so the smoke rises into cracks and doesn't choke the space. These details matter because you will be here for months. The cave becomes not just a shelter, but a place you know as well as you know the shape of your own hands. There are debates Of course, among those who prefer the open camp. They will tell you that caves are dangerous, that predators use them too, that they trap smoke and bad air. And they are not wrong. You must always check a cave before settling in, looking for signs that something bigger and hungrier has claimed it first. You must know how to keep your fire small enough to warm without filling the air with thick, choking smoke. But for all these risks, the balance still tips in the cave's favor. In the Ice Age, you cannot afford to ignore a shelter the earth has made for you. The air inside a cave holds another advantage. It moves more slowly, which means your body can warm the space immediately around you. In the open, any heat you give off is snatched away by the wind, gone before you even notice it. Here, a small fire, a few bodies huddled together, and a pile of hides can create a pocket of warmth that stays through the night. It will not be summer warm, but it will be enough. Enough in this time is what survival feels like. Some caves even have side chambers, narrow passages that lead to smaller rooms. These can be warmer still, since they are even more protected from the entrance. Families might sleep in these smaller spaces, using the larger chamber for cooking, working, and keeping watch. This way, the heat you build with your breath and your fire stays close, curling around you like an invisible blanket. In the morning, when you first step out into the main chamber, you will feel the difference immediately. The air will seem sharper, the ground colder, and you will be reminded of what the walls have done for you all night. Even the smell of a cave changes with the season. In the summer, it might carry a damp, earthy scent, heavy with the memory of rain. In winter, it smells of smoke, hides, and the faint mineral temps of frozen stone. These smells are not always pleasant, but they are familiar, and familiarity is another kind of comfort. It means you are still in the place that kept you safe yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. You lie back against the rock, feeling the way it supports your weight without shifting, without bending. Outside, the ground would be uneven, icy, and hard in ways that make your bones ache. Here, it is simply there, solid, unchanging, dependable. In a season when so much can be taken from you by the cold, that dependability is a gift. The cave does not ask for anything. It does not grow weaker as the wind grows stronger. It just holds its place, letting you hold yours. As you close your eyes again, you realize the cave is more than just stone walls. It is a boundary between you and a world that would take your warmth, your strength, and your life if it could. It is the quiet that lets you rest when everything outside wants you moving, struggling, surviving. In that quiet, wrapped in the slow breath of the cave, you let yourself drift back towards sleep, knowing that As long as these walls stand, you have a place where winter cannot touch you entirely. If the cave was your first defense against the winter cold, animal skins were your second, and in some ways, the more personal one. The cave was a gift from the earth, shaped over centuries, but the hides came from your own work, from the long hours of tracking, hunting, skinning, and preparing. Each one carried the memory of a hunt, a meal, a fire that burned a little brighter because of it. Lying under those hides at night, you could almost feel that history pressing close, warming you from more than just the outside. When you think about bedding today, you might imagine feathers, cotton, or something soft and uniform. Animal skins in the Ice Age were none of these things. They were thick in some places, thin in others. They smelled of smoke, fat, and earth. The fur might be matted in one patch, silky in another, depending on the life of the animal it once belonged to. Every imperfection told you something, where the hide had been scraped a little too hard while cleaning, where scar in the animal's skin made the texture change, where the fur was shorter from rubbing against snow. These marks didn't make the hides less valuable. If anything, they made them more yours. The process of turning a fresh skin into bedding was slow and deliberate. After the hunt, you would cut carefully along the body, peeling the hide away without letting it tear. Then came the work of scraping off any flesh or fat that clung to the inside. A task that was messy, tiring, and best done before the cold stiffened everything into ice. Once scraped clean, the hide had to be stretched and worked until it was pliable, so it wouldn't stiffen into a useless board as it dried. Some people rubbed animal brains into the skin, the oils helping to soften and preserve it. A method discovered long before anyone wrote it down. Then, if there was time, it would be smoked over a low fire, the smoke sinking into the fibers, driving away insects and giving the hide that rich, familiar scent you now associated with warmth. Laying out your bedding at night was its own ritual. First came the base layer, the hides with the coarsest fur, or the ones already worn thin from years of use. These went closest to the ground, their job less about comfort and more about blocking the cold that seeped up from the stone. On top of that, you placed the thickest furs, bison, mammoth, or bear if you were lucky, the kind that trapped heat even when the air around you bit at your skin. Finally, for the outer covering, you might use the softest and most flexible hides, ones that could fold around your shoulders and seal in the warmth of your own body. This layering wasn't just comfort, it was strategy. In the Ice Age, the way you arranged your bedding could mean the difference between sleeping through the night and waking with numb fingers and stiff limbs. The hides were more than blankets. They were barriers against a thin, creeping cold that could slip through even the smallest gaps in your defenses. When you curled under them, pulling the edges tight to your body, you were creating a sealed world, your own small space within the cave. The heat from your breath, from your chest and legs, stayed inside this pocket, growing with each slow exhale. In the morning, when you pushed the hides back, you could feel the wall of cold waiting outside that little cocoon, ready to swallow it up. But for the hours in between, you had built your own climate, and it was enough. Not all hides were equal, of course. The thick winter coats of animals taken late in the season were the most prized. These furs were dense, rich, with insulating layers grown in response to the same cold you were trying to survive. Summer hides were lighter, useful for autumn or as extra padding. But in the deep heart of winter, they could not hold warmth the same way. This was knowledge learned not from books, but from countless winters of trial, error, and necessity. When you lay down at night, you knew exactly which hide to pull closest, which to tuck under your hips, where the cold liked to sneak in first. Sometimes the hides carried more than warmth. They carried stories. The mammoth hide that formed the base of your bedding might have come from a hunt that took the entire group days to prepare for. Following tracks across frozen plains, risking the charge of a creature far larger than any one of you. The deer hide you used cover your shoulders could have come from a quick, lucky strike on a crisp autumn morning, the kind of hunt that felt almost effortless in comparison. Each hide, whether from a dangerous kill or an easy one, was part of the larger story of how you had come to survive this far into the winter. Over time, the bedding took on its own smell, a mixture of fur, smoke, and the faint, earthy scent of dried grass from the layers beneath. To someone from another time, it might seem strong, even unpleasant, but to you it was as familiar as the sound of your own breath. It was the smell of safety, of nights spent warm enough to sleep, of mornings when you woke with all your fingers and toes still yours, in a season when every resource had to be earned. That scent was a quiet victory. There were moments lying under those hides when you could almost forget how cold the world was. You could listen to the steady breathing of the people around you, of the slow rhythm of your own heart, and let your mind drift away from the constant planning and labor of survival. The hides were not just warmth for your body, they were warmth for your thoughts, creating a space where you could rest without the next day's challenges pressing in too soon. In the deep hours of the night, when the fire burned low and the cold crept closer to the entrance, you might pull the hides tighter around you, sealing out even the smallest draft. The fur would brush against your face, soft in one patch, coarse in another, reminding you in each texture that this warmth had been earned, not given. Outside, the wind would rise, throwing snow against the cave's entrance with a sound like sand being poured onto stone. Inside, you would only shift slightly, tucking your knees closer, pulling the hides snug, and drifting back into a sleep that was as much about trust as it was about warmth. And when the morning came, if the light could even be called morning in the dim, gray stillness of winter, you would push back the hides slowly, letting the cold hit your face in a wave. The air would make your eyes water, your breath curl in the air before you. You would step out of your small, self-made shelter within the cave, and the day would begin again. But the memory of that warmth, the feeling of the hides around you, would stay with you, pushing you through the work ahead until the next time you could crawl under them and let the world narrow down to nothing more than the slow beat of your heart. The fire in the cave is more than warmth. It is the pulse of life in the dark. A slow, glowing heartbeat that you can feel in your bones, even when the embers are all that remain. By the time you settle under your hides at night, the flames have already done their work, licking at the edges of the stone hearth and sending small sparks that vanish before they hit the floor. The fire is never just fire. It is comfort, security, and a kind of psychological armor against the harsh world waiting beyond the cave mouth. When it dies down to glowing coals, it is not failure. It is preparation, a promise that the next night can be met with light and heat without struggle. The placement of the fire is deliberate. Too close, and it risks burning the hides you've arranged with care. Too far, and it will not radiate warmth where it is needed most. Over time, you have learned the perfect balance, understanding how the heat travels across stone, how the smoke rises into cracks in the ceiling rather than choking you, how to maintain a gentle, steady glow that lasts through the coldest hours. There is a kind of meditation in tending the fire, in watching the coals fade and flare, in listening to the faint pop of a stone cracking from heat. It is slow work, but necessary, and in the Ice Age, slow work often meant survival. The glow of the fire seeps into everything nearby. The fur hides that cover you absorb some of it, holding onto heat and releasing it gradually. Shadows stretch across the walls, dancing lazily, while the coals hum faintly as they cool. Even in the quietest part of the night, the fire has a rhythm, a breathing pattern that reminds you that something is alive in the cave besides yourself. You watch it for a few minutes, letting your mind slow down to match the slow flicker of light. In these moments, the fire is a companion, a silent friend whose presence is as familiar as the shape of the bedding beneath you. There's also a smell to the fire, that you cannot ignore. Even after it has been reduced to embers, the scent of smoke clings to the cave, mixing with the musk of the hides and the faint, earthy smell of the stone floor. It is not a perfume that would please anyone else, but to you, it is a comfort. It means someone was here before you, someone who understood the value of heat and light, someone who left a trace of their effort in the glowing coals that now rest quietly. In this way, fire is memory as much as warmth. It reminds you that you are not the first to survive these nights, and you will not be the last. Fire is also practical. A living flame deters small predators that might wander too close, even while you sleep. It keeps insects and vermin at bay. Its presence allows you to cook simple meals or heat water, even if the task must wait until morning. But in the deepest hours of the night, the practical purpose fades, leaving only the gentle reassurance of warmth and light. You can feel it in your face, in your fingers, and in the hollow of your back pressed against the bedding. The fire does not rush. It does not demand attention unless you give it. Its patience is quiet, almost human in its steady insistence that you will survive another night. The embers, even as they shrink, create a soft red glow that illuminates the cave in subtle, comforting shades. Stones near the fire absorb and radiate heat, creating pockets where you can lay your feet and feel the slow seep of warmth into your bones. You notice this instinctively, moving slightly to find the areas where the heat has gathered. Your body remembers the way it remembers every contour of the bedding, every crease in the hides. The cave is not a perfect shelter, and the fire is not perfect warmth, but together they create a fragile, enduring equilibrium. That is enough to let you drift toward sleep. The fire also teaches patience. You cannot rush it. It cannot be forced to burn hotter than it wants. In the Ice Age, everything took time. Animals needed tracking, wood needed collecting, hides needed preparing, and fire needed coaxing. Learning to work with fire, to respect its limitations, and accept its rhythm is as much a skill as hunting or sewing. By the time you lie down for the night, that lesson is internalized. You understand that warmth cannot be hurried, but it can be maintained. And in winter, maintenance is everything. Sometimes, while the fire hums quietly, you can hear the wind outside catching snowflakes and sending them bouncing off the rocks near the entrance. The contrast is stark. One sound is gentle, predictable, and comforting. The other is chaotic, sharp, and capable of stealing the warmth from your skin in seconds. The cave, the hides, the fire. Together, they form a boundary between these two worlds. You can feel the difference in the air, in the subtle changes in temperature, in the shift from shadow to glow, and it reminds you that your place, however small, is safe for the night. Even when the fire is low, its presence allows small luxuries in the cave. You can move a little without fear, reach for another hide, or check on a companion without plunging into complete darkness. The red glow softens the shadows, makes shapes gentle and familiar rather than strange and frightening. It teaches you the importance of light, the quiet power of seeing what is around you, even when the night is at its deepest. Eventually, you pull the hides tighter, nestling into the warmth as the embers hum their fading song. The glow softens, your eyes grow heavy, and the knowledge that the fire can be rekindled easily in the morning is enough to let your mind drift. You breathe slowly, matching the rhythm of the cave, the slow pulse of warmth from the coals, and the gentle hush of the wind outside. You are aware of the world beyond, but only as a distant presence, a reminder of why the fire matters. By the time sleep overtakes you fully, the embers are nothing more than glowing remnants. The light is soft and muted, and the shadows have settled into the corners of the cave. But the fire has done its job. It has reminded you that warmth exists. It has held the cold at bay. And for a few hours more, you can rest without thinking, drifting in a slow, calm rhythm that only a well-tended fire in an Ice Age cave can teach. In the deep winter, food is more than nourishment. It is warmth, it is energy, and it is a quiet, essential ritual that stretches across the long, gray hours of the day. Every meal is calculated, not for flavor, but for survival. You do not eat because you are hungry in the way a modern person might reach for a snack. You eat because your body is working overtime to maintain its core temperature against a world designed to pull heat from you at every opportunity. In the cave, near the fire, and beneath the thick furs, meals become a ceremony of endurance, an acknowledgement that every calorie is a shield against frostbite and fatigue. The ingredients themselves are spars, shaped entirely by what the land and season allow. Winter animals are fewer and harder to find. Mammoth and bison roam the open plains, sometimes visible through the thin curtain of snowfall, but hunting them is a dangerous, exhausting endeavor. Smaller animals, rabbits, foxes, and the occasional deer are more attainable, but catching even these requires patience, skill, and luck. Foraging is limited to roots and dried plants stored before the snow fell. You have learned to appreciate every morsel, from the tiniest tuber to the fattiest piece of meat, because you know that each one contributes directly to your ability to keep warm. The act of cooking is slow and deliberate. Fire is precious, and every ember is a resource. You cannot allow it to flare wildly or burn too quickly. Over the coals, food is roasted, dried, or simmered in small, carefully carved containers. Sometimes, meat is pressed against hot stones to release its oils, turning the cooking process into a kind of heat management. The smell of roasting meat fills the cave, not in a way meant to entice, but in a way that reminds you of sustenance, of life, of something that will give you the strength to face another freezing day. Meals are communal, though they are not shared in the sense of equal portions. Everyone eats according to their role, age, and contribution to the hunt or gathering. The elders may get the thicker cuts that provide the most calories. Children eat what is easiest to chew and digest. Those who have spent hours in the snow returning with successful kills are allowed the first choice, a subtle recognition of their efforts. This arrangement is not arbitrary. It is the product of centuries of trial and error, a social code written in the language of survival rather than words. The heat from the fire works in tandem with the meal. A stew, rich in fat and protein, releases warmth into your stomach that spreads slowly throughout your body. Every bite is like a small ember kindled inside you, radiating through your chest, down your limbs, into your fingers and toes. You can feel the difference between eating a raw piece of meat and eating something cooked. The cooked food not only fuels your muscles, but raises your core temperature just enough to make the cave feel a little more like a sanctuary and a little less like a frozen expanse waiting to steal your warmth. Even the process of eating is designed to conserve heat. You hunch close to the fire, elbows tucked in, hands shielded by the fur of your clothing or the hides around you. Food is not consumed in haste, but in small, deliberate bites, allowing the body to digest slowly and extract maximum energy. If you were to rush, too much of the heat would be wasted, rising and leaving your body before it could be absorbed. Winter is a time of calculation, even in something as simple as chewing. Sometimes the meals are supplemented with dried fat or marrow. These dense, high-calorie foods are considered treasures in the winter. They do not taste luxurious in any modern sense, but the warmth they provide makes them priceless. Marrow is extracted carefully from bones using stones or carved implements, a tedious process, but one that adds both calories and a subtle, lasting heat to your body. Eating it slowly, savoring the texture and the warmth it provides, is a practice that takes patience and respect for the animal, for the fire, and for the harsh season you are living through. There is also a social dimension to the meals. Sitting close to each other under the fire's glow, you feel the shared body heat of those around you. Arms, shoulders, and backs touch in small, incidental ways, creating a network of warmth that no amount of fire alone could produce. You sense it without needing to think about it, a quiet reassurance that the community exists, that the struggle of one is buffered by the presence of many. Even in the bleakest winter, that connection provides its own comfort, reinforcing the idea that survival is not only personal but collective. The rhythm of eating is punctuated by the sounds of the cave. A dull rustle of furs, the faint crack of a cooling ember, the occasional drip of melting ice near the entrance. These sounds are constant reminders of the environment outside, reminding you of why every bite matters, why every ounce of energy counts. The fire may slow the cold, and the hides may trap it, but food fuels your body from within, a reminder that warmth is not just external. It must be cultivated internally, carefully, with patience and precision. Even the smallest details affect how meals contribute to warmth. The temperature of the food matters. Hot food releases more immediate heat, while cold food slows digestion and can lower core temperature. The order in which food is eaten, the combination of fat and protein, the pace at which it is consumed, all of it is a calculated dance between hunger and warmth. In this way, eating is more than sustenance. It is strategy, a nightly exercise in energy management that prepares your body for the long hours of sleep and the even longer, colder hours of the coming night. By the end of a meal, you feel a tangible sense of readiness. The body is warmed from the inside. The fire radiates at your back. The hides cradle your limbs. And the knowledge that you have eaten enough to maintain strength gives a quiet sense of security. You lean back against the stone walls of the cave, feeling the slow pulse of heat throughout your chest and abdomen. It is not luxury. It is not indulgence. It is survival, pure and slow, measured in calories and body heat rather than taste or pleasure. As the last embers glow and the meal settles in, you pull the hides tighter, letting the warmth from both the fire and the food envelop you completely. Outside, the wind may howl, the snow may fall, and the ice age may continue its relentless work. But inside, you are buffered by the combination of careful hunting, deliberate cooking, communal sharing, and the heat of your own body. Winter meals and body heat are inseparable. One fuels the other, and together they make the difference between shivering through the night and sleeping deeply, as a caveman has done for millennia. In the deep, unyielding cold of the Ice Age, survival was rarely a solo endeavor. The cave might shield you from wind and snow. The hides might hold your body warmth, and the fire might pulse its soft heat into the air. But there was another layer of defense that was just as critical: the warmth of other people. Shared body heat is subtle and persistent. It is not luxurious, nor is it polite in the way modern etiquette would define. But it is effective, almost scientific in its simplicity. Every body pressed close to yours transfers energy, a kind of slow thermal handshake that makes the difference between shivering through the night and sleeping comfortably enough to dream. When you lie down to rest, you arrange yourself in patterns dictated by instinct and experience. The oldest and wisest often take the spots closest to the back of the cave or the center of the bedding, where warmth accumulates most efficiently. Younger children, who generate heat quickly but lose it faster, are nestled between adults or against older siblings, their smaller bodies absorbing warmth while giving it in return. Even the hunters, who have spent the day in exertion and are more tolerant of cold, are arranged to maximize heat distribution. This is not random. It is an unspoken science, refined through countless winters, perfected by necessity rather than theory. Sleeping positions are just as calculated. People curl into tight balls, tucking knees and elbows close to conserve energy. Heads are often nestled under the furs of another, or against the warm back of a companion, creating a chain of body heat that radiates slowly and evenly. Side by side, the limbs of several bodies interlock, forming a human quilt whose warmth rivals any fire. One does not shift lightly because movement can break the delicate network of heat transfer, exposing fingers, toes, or torsos to sudden chills. The positions also create a kind of safety network. In the darkness of the cave, with wind and predators outside, bodies pressed close together provide reassurance beyond warmth. The presence of others felt in every subtle touch, in the rise and fall of chests, in the faint brushing of limbs against one another, becomes a kind of psychological armor. The mind relaxes slightly because the body is no longer entirely vulnerable. In this sense, shared body heat is as much about comfort as it is about physics. You sleep not just warmer, but calmer, soothed by the slow, steady rhythm of collective life. There are also natural hierarchies in the arrangement. Leaders, hunters, or those who have proven their skill in previous hunts often occupy the positions that receive the most warmth, either at the center of the bedding or closest to the fire's glow. Their bodies act as anchors, radiating heat outward to the others. The young, the sick, or the less experienced are placed where they will benefit most, forming layers of thermal strategy. These arrangements are rarely spoken of. They are learned through observation and repetition, passed down through generations as part of the culture of survival. Even the smallest adjustments matter. An arm extended just slightly, a knee tucked in. the angle at which one head rests against a companion. All of these influence how warmth flows through the group. Over time, everyone learns the subtle art of positioning, how to maximize heat without discomfort, how to give warmth without sacrificing their own. It is a dance that unfolds each night, unspoken, slow, and precise. In the morning, when the first light filters faintly into the cave, the arrangement may have shifted slightly, but the overall pattern persists. Heat has circulated, energy has been conserved, and bodies have survived the night together. There is also the sensory aspect of shared heat. When a hand brushes against yours, or a shoulder presses lightly against your back, it is not just warmth that transfers. There is a reassurance in these touches, a slow, sleepy acknowledgement that you are not alone in the struggle. Even the faint smell of other bodies mingled with smoke and furs is comforting. It signals life, endurance, and the fact that, together, you have managed to resist the cold once again. In the Ice Age, this reassurance is as vital as any food, fire, or hide. The human body itself is efficient at storing and radiating heat. When pressed together in a sleeping cluster, this efficiency is amplified. Heat flows along shared surfaces, moving from warmer bodies to cooler ones, equalizing slowly over hours. Fingers tucked under arms or between legs stay warmer. Shoulders pressed against backs act as miniature radiators. Even breathing contributes, releasing warm air into the small pockets created by bodies and furs, which slowly circulates and is absorbed. By the time the first light of morning arrives, there is a residual warmth that lingers, a faint but persistent heat that carries through the early hours when the cave itself is still cold. There are risks, of course. Sleeping too close to someone without understanding the dynamics can lead to uneven warmth, or, in rare cases, accidental pressure or discomfort. But these risks are minor compared to the benefits. The network of heat is resilient. It adapts naturally to the shifting bodies over the night. If someone moves, another adjusts. If one is too cold, others unconsciously respond. Over time, everyone becomes adept at these adjustments, learning the slow, careful negotiation required for optimal warmth. Shared body heat also affects sleep cycles. Nights in the Ice Age are long, often stretching far beyond what modern humans would consider normal. The combined warmth allows people to rest more deeply, conserving energy for the day's work. The body cycles more efficiently between light and deep sleep, making each hour of rest more valuable. Without this shared heat, sleep would be shallow, broken, and less restorative. With it, the cave becomes a refuge not just from cold, but from exhaustion itself. Finally, there is a social rhythm to all of this. The quiet touches, the subtle shifts, and the careful positioning reinforce bonds within the group. Survival depends not just on individual skill, but on collective endurance. The warmth you receive from another is a reminder of your interdependence. In a world ruled by snow, ice, and wind, it is a quiet affirmation that together you can endure. That shared heat is a slow, patient victory over the relentless cold. As the hours of night stretch on, you lie nestled among your companions, feeling the subtle rise and fall of chests, the soft brush of limbs, the gentle warmth seeping through the furs. Outside, the Ice Age continues its quiet, cold work, but inside, you are cocooned, wrapped in a network of warmth, safety, and slow, sleepy reassurance. It is the most natural, most reliable defense against the freezing dark, one that has ensured the survival of countless generations before you, and will continue to do so as long as people remember the quiet art of shared body heat. In the Ice Age, survival was not a matter of fashion or vanity. Clothing was strategy, and the ability to adapt to the season was a skill honed through necessity rather than instruction. Unlike modern times, when a jacket or coat might be chosen for style or brand, the garments you wear are an extension of your body's ability to maintain warmth, manage sweat, and resist wind. Every piece has a purpose, every layer is deliberate, and every adjustment, whether a hood drawn tighter over your head or fur wrapped carefully around your torso, can mean the difference between comfort and frostbite. Winter clothing begins with layers, and not for the sake of appearance. The first layer is often close to the skin, made from softer furs or prepared hides that trap warmth while absorbing minimal moisture. Sweat is a silent enemy in the cold. If it freezes against your skin, it can sap heat faster than the wind ever could. You learned through countless nights of trial and error that keeping this inner layer dry is more important than making it thick or heavy. It is the foundation upon which the rest of your survival is built. The outer layers are designed for insulation and wind protection. Thick hides from bison, mammoth, or bear provide a barrier against the cold that seeps through the air. These layers are carefully fitted, not tight like modern clothing, but loose enough to trap air between layers, which acts as a natural insulator. The arrangement of fur direction also matters. Long hair pointing outward repels wind and snow, while shorter hair, closer to the skin, adds warmth. These subtle considerations, seemingly insignificant to the untrained eye, are the result of generations of observation, experimentation, and necessity. Hoods, mittens, and leg coverings are equally important. A hood may be as simple as a piece of fur tied loosely over the head, but it protects your ears and neck, areas particularly susceptible to frostbite. Mittens are often preferred to gloves because they keep fingers together, sharing warmth and reducing heat loss. Leg coverings made from layered hides prevent cold from creeping up from snow or ice, particularly when traveling across open terrain. Each addition is a calculated choice, an acknowledgement of how heat moves through the body and how cold can infiltrate even the smallest gap. The positioning and arrangement of the clothing are just as critical as the materials themselves. You might tuck the hem of a tunic or hide into the waistband of a lower layer to prevent drafts. Sleeves are rolled or folded to trap warmth around the arms, while collars or fur-lined edges are drawn up to shield the neck. Even small adjustments to the angle of a hood or the overlap of two layers can create pockets of heat that make long nights and harsh winds more tolerable. Over time, these tricks become second nature, performed almost unconsciously while you move, hunt, or prepare for sleep. Color and texture also play subtle roles, even if they are not chosen for aesthetic reasons. Darker furs absorb sunlight more effectively during brief daylight hours, helping to retain warmth. Coarser textures near the outside layer repel snow and ice, preventing them from reaching the inner layers where they would chill the skin. Softer textures closer to the body maintain comfort and prevent chafing. These are observations made from long experience, not experimentation in laboratories, and they are passed down as essential knowledge. The sort of wisdom that determines whether a body survives or succumbs to the cold. Clothing is also adaptive. Hides can be rearranged, layered differently, or supplemented with new acquisitions depending on the severity of the winter. If a harsh cold front arrives, furs are layered thicker, edges tucked tighter, and additional pieces borrowed from companions if necessary. In slightly warmer periods, layers may be loosened or adjusted to prevent overheating, which could be just as dangerous as freezing. There is an intimate understanding of temperature gradients, both inside the clothing and outside in the environment, a relationship that modern thermometers can measure but cannot teach the intuitive skill of managing by feel. Decorative elements, if they exist, are minimal and functional. Ties, cords, or strips of hide are used to secure garments, keep layers from slipping, and create flexibility in movement. They are not frivolous. They are carefully placed where they are needed most. The knots and fastenings themselves are learned techniques designed for efficiency, strength, and durability. Every feature of clothing is meant to prolong warmth and ease labor, which in the Ice Age is rarely trivial. Sleepwear is slightly different from travel or hunting attire. At night, garments are arranged to maximize contact with the body and minimize gaps where cold could enter. Hoods may be removed if the fire's warmth is sufficient, or added if a cold draft creeps through the cave entrance. Furs might be wrapped around the shoulders, tucked under knees, or layered under and over other hides to create thermal pockets, made with the understanding that during hours of unconsciousness, the body will not actively protect itself. Only the foresight of arrangement can maintain warmth. Children and weaker individuals often benefit from improvised clothing tricks. Extra layers, padding, or borrowed furs provide insulation for those who lose heat faster. Small adjustments, like folding a hide over the shoulders or tucking an extra strip around the chest, create thermal security for those most vulnerable. It is a silent form of care, a recognition that survival is communal, and that clothing is as much about protecting others as oneself. By the end of the evening, everyone is dressed and layered, the clothing configured to create a slow, steady barrier against winter's assault. Each layer, each fold, each tucked edge contributes to a body that can sleep, move, and survive without unnecessary loss of heat. There is satisfaction in this preparation, a quiet confidence that you are ready for whatever the night and the cold may bring. The knowledge that your clothing has been carefully arranged, combined with bedding, shared heat, and fire, completes a system designed to keep you alive. As you lie down for the night, wrapped in furs and hides, each layer plays its part. The inner layer keeps you dry. The outer layers trap warmth. Hoods shield your head. Mittens keep fingers from freezing. And the layering technique ensures the air between you and the cold acts as insulation. Your body is cocooned, protected from wind, frost, and nighttime chill. Outside, the ice age works its relentless work. Inside, your clothing system, refined over countless winters, guarantees that sleep is possible, deep and warm. With each slow exhale, the air trapped between layers warms slightly, adding a gentle, self-sustaining heat to the complex system you've assembled. This is not comfort in the modern sense, but a profound and quiet mastery of survival. Every layer, tuck, and adjustment is part of an invisible shield, a testament to the ingenuity and patience of your ancestors. By the time your eyes finally close fully, you are not just dressed. You are armored, insulated, and prepared for the long night ahead, a living embodiment of Ice Age wisdom. The cave's fire does more than light the darkness or fend off predators. Its glow reaches into the very arrangement of your bedding, transforming ordinary hides and furs into a slow-release source of warmth. You have learned through countless nights of trial and error that placing certain layers near the coals, then pulling them slightly toward the sleeping area, just before rest, creates a bed that radiates heat long after. This is not magic. It is physics, observed and respected, practiced slowly and deliberately. The sort of understanding that only time and necessity can teach. Fire-enhanced bedding begins with careful placement. Stones surrounding the fire absorb heat during the day or evening. And when positioned near sleeping areas, they act as slow radiators, releasing warmth into the furs and hides over hours. You lay your bedding with this in mind, creating zones of residual heat that ensure toes and extremities, most prone to cold, are never left vulnerable. A single misplacement of a hide, a slight shift in layering, and the effect diminishes, demonstrating how intimately you must understand your environment to survive the Ice Age winter. The hides themselves become part of the system. Thick animal skins nearest to the fire absorb radiant heat, softening and relaxing as they warm. Then transmit that heat inward as you lie on them. Softer furs closer to your body create insulation, trapping both the heat from the fire and the warmth of your own body. By nightfall, the bedding is more than a place to sleep. It is a thermal buffer, a slow, steady heat source that allows you to rest without concern that the cold will creep back in while you dream. This strategy also requires timing. You do not leave hides too close to the fire for too long, or they become scorching to the touch. You do not move them too late, or the heat does not have time to penetrate the thick layers. The process is deliberate. Adjust, wait, feel the surface, and then prepare for sleep. Every adjustment, even minor, counts in a world where heat is precious and the night is long. Through repetition, these routines become instinctive, part of the nightly rhythm that ensures comfort and survival. There is a gentle rhythm to this preparation. You shift furs, move stones, and pull hides into place, while the fire hums softly in the background. The coals send out small pulses of red orange light, painting the cave walls in warm, gentle tones. Shadows stretch and fold, creating a calm, almost hypnotic environment. Even the smallest details, the angle of a hide, the placement of a stone, the layering of furs, contribute to the effectiveness of the bedding. It is meticulous, slow work, but it is rewarded with warmth that lasts through the coldest hours. Fire-enhanced bedding also interacts with shared body heat. As you settle into the prepared layers with companions, the heat stored in the hides combines with the warmth of human bodies, creating an amplified effect. The bedding, once passive, now participates actively in maintaining comfort, transferring heat from the environment, from the coals, and from others pressed close by. It is a system that grows more effective over time, its efficiency magnified by careful observation and subtle coordination. Even the arrangement of smaller bedding elements matters. Stray pieces of fur can be tucked into gaps where drafts tend to creep, creating localized thermal pockets. Stones warmed during the day are positioned under or beside layers to radiate heat slowly. Extra hides are sometimes placed beneath extremities, under feet or knees, ensuring that cold does not concentrate where it is most dangerous. Every piece has a role. Every placement is intentional. And over the hours of night, these small interventions in comfort and survival. The thermal interaction of fire-enhanced bedding is also psychological. Knowing that the bed has been prepared to release heat slowly allows for a kind of mental relaxation. The body can trust that warmth will be present without constant adjustment or worry. You can close your eyes, breathe slowly, and let the rhythm of the cave, the coals, and the shared body heat lull you into a deeper, more restorative sleep. This sense of security is almost as important as the physical heat itself. It is not just warmth that the fire imparts to the bedding. There is also a gentle, drying effect. Moisture from snow, sweat, or damp clothing can seep into layers, but the proximity to heat, combined with careful layering, allows this moisture to evaporate slowly, preventing chilling. The hides do not become overly dry and brittle. They remain pliable, soft, and supportive. In this way, fire-enhanced bedding maintains its protective properties day after night, ensuring that the same layers can be relied upon repeatedly without deterioration. Even in the deepest hours of night, when the fire has burned low and coals glow faintly, the bedding continues to work. The heat stored in stone, fur, and hide is gradually released, filling the gaps around your body, circulating slowly, and combining with shared warmth from companions. You can feel the gentle, persistent effect in your chest, along your limbs, and even in the tips of your fingers and toes. It is a subtle sensation, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable in its effect. This careful preparation reflects a profound understanding of the interaction between materials, fire, and human bodies. You are, in essence, creating a primitive but effective heating system, one that relies on patience, observation, and a slow, deliberate rhythm of nightly preparation. It is a skill honed over generations, repeated countless times, and perfected not through theory, but through lived experience. The Ice Age is unforgiving, but the fire-enhanced bedding system is a quiet, persistent victory over it, a triumph of knowledge and slow, careful labor. Finally, as you settle fully into the bedding, the layers cradling your body, the warmth from the coals radiating gently, and the shared heat from companions pressed close. You feel the culmination of all this preparation. Outside, the wind may howl, and snow may batter the cave entrance. But inside, the fire, hides, and careful arrangements have created a sanctuary. Your body relaxes completely, breathing slows, and the mind follows, slipping gradually into the slow, deep rhythm of Ice Age sleep. Fire-enhanced bedding is more than warmth. It is a strategy, a practice, and a quiet, persistent companion, one that ensures survival through the longest, coldest nights. The cave at night is not silent. Even when the fire has dimmed to a gentle glow, when the coals hum quietly and the furs hold warmth around you, the cave produces a soundtrack of its own, subtle, constant, and oddly comforting. Each sound, though small, reminds you that the world outside still exists, that the Ice Age continues its slow, relentless work, and that inside you are protected, insulated, and safe. Listening carefully, you begin to notice patterns in the whispers of the night, rhythms that slowly seep into your awareness as you prepare for sleep. The wind outside creates a low, hollow whistle as it passes over rocks and around the cave entrance. Snow scrapes across the stone, creating soft, scratching noises that rise and fall in unpredictable cadences. It is a harsh world beyond the mouth of the cave, but the sound is filtered, softened, and slowed by distance, giving it a gentle, hypnotic quality. You can feel the cold in the air without actually being touched by it, and the cave acts as a buffer, both physically and acoustically, isolating you from the full impact of the storm. Inside the cave, there are creaks and groans that seem almost alive. Rocks shift slightly as temperatures change, stones expand and contract, and every movement creates tiny echoes that ripple across the walls. The fur hides under you, murmur your subtle movements and the shifting bodies of companions. These sounds, though minor, are reassuring. They remind you that life continues, that the cave is not empty, that you are part of a network of warmth, sound, and slow activity that persists even in the long winter night. Sometimes, the occasional drip of water or melting ice adds to the cave's rhythm. A tiny drop falls from a crack in the ceiling or a wall, landing softly on stone or fur. The sound is delicate but regular, a subtle counterpoint to the occasional crackle of residual embers from the fire. Over time, your mind tunes into these tiny, almost imperceptible events, weaving them into a slow, calming awareness of your environment. It is a natural lullaby, one not composed by humans but by the Ice Age itself, mediated by stone, snow, and slow, patient observation. The presence of companions adds yet another layer to the cave's soundscape. Slow breathing, the faint rustle of furs as bodies shift, even the occasional sigh or murmur becomes part of the nighttime symphony. Shared space and shared sound are interconnected. Warmth is enhanced by proximity, and proximity is reinforced by the knowledge that each sound signals life, endurance, and mutual survival. The cave is never lonely. It is a communal space, alive with gentle, comforting activity, though much of it goes unnoticed until the mind begins to relax toward sleep. Even the fire contributes quietly to the soundtrack. As embers cool, they pop and hiss intermittently, creating a slow rhythm that is almost musical in its predictability. Sparks occasionally flare briefly, sending tiny flashes of heat and light across nearby hides and stones. The sound is not jarring, but gentle, a reminder that energy remains, slowly diminishing but persistent enough to influence the comfort of the bedding. Over the hours, these subtle interactions between fire, stone, fur, and bodies create a dynamic auditory environment that soothes rather than alarms. The cave itself has acoustics that are strangely effective for sleep. Sounds are softened, echoes are prolonged, and the combined effect of wind, dripping water, and movement produces a continuous, low-level murmur. Unlike modern rooms, which are engineered for silence, the cave's design amplifies some frequencies and dampens others, creating a naturally calming environment. Over time, your brain learns to interpret these sounds not as threats, but as cues that survival has been arranged, that warmth exists, and that sleep can proceed without worry. Animals within or near the cave add yet another subtle layer. Occasionally, a bat or small rodent may move quietly along the edges, producing faint, scurrying noises. These are almost imperceptible against the louder background of wind and fire, but over time you learn to distinguish them. They are part of the nightly rhythm, a reminder that life continues even in the coldest, harshest environment. The presence of these minor creatures contributes to a sense of normalcy, an understanding that you are not isolated, but part of a living, breathing ecosystem, even in the middle of winter. The mind gradually tunes to these sounds, filtering them in a way that promotes relaxation. Loud, sudden noises are alarming, but the consistent, predictable rhythm of wind, fire, water, and companions creates a sensory backdrop conducive to sleep. You notice the difference immediately. In an environment without these layers, the mind might remain tense, anticipating danger. Here, with the cave's gentle symphony, the mind can slow, breathing can become regular, and consciousness drifts toward the slow, restorative cycle that the body requires to endure the next freezing day. There is also a subtle, emotional comfort in these sounds. The whistle of the wind, once threatening in its unpredictability, becomes a familiar tune, part of the nightly routine. The popping embers are no longer reminders of potential danger, but signals that energy remains and warmth is still present. Even the movement of companions becomes a soothing indicator of life and shared endurance. The sound of the cave at night is therefore not merely auditory. It is a slow, patient form of reassurance, a layer of survival woven invisibly into the nightly environment. By the time your body is fully settled, wrapped in hides and furs, the fire providing gentle warmth, and companions pressed close, the cave's subtle soundtrack has completed its work. Your mind has adjusted to the rhythms, your body to the residual heat, and your consciousness begins to slide toward sleep. You are aware, at some level, of the world outside, but it is softened by distance, by stone, by shared warmth, and by time-tested preparation. The cave has become a sanctuary, and its sounds are part of the cocoon that allows you to rest deeply. Ultimately, the sound of the cave at night is a tool of survival as much as any fire, hide, or bedding arrangement. It signals continuity, stability, and rhythm, quietly reinforcing the slow, deliberate strategies that have been perfected over countless winters. As you drift fully into sleep, the wind, the dripping water, the creaking stone, and the gentle breathing of companions become a lullaby. A slow, persistent, ice age lullaby that assures you of warmth, safety, and the possibility of another day. Evening in the cave is not merely the end of a day. It is a slow, deliberate transition from the active labor of survival to the restful endurance of night. The ritual of evening settling is an unspoken choreography performed nightly by every member of the group, refined over countless winters and designed to maximize warmth, safety, and comfort. Each step, no matter how small, is carefully timed, observed, and repeated, a testament to the patient wisdom of Ice Age life. The ritual begins with the fire. You do not leave it unattended or allow it to die too quickly. Embers are stirred, small pieces of dry wood are added, and smoke is managed to provide gentle warmth without overwhelming the cave. This is not a hurried task, but a careful balance. Too much flame creates turbulence and wastes precious fuel, while too little leaves the bedding and the bodies around it vulnerable to creeping cold. The fire's rhythm becomes part of the evening, a slow heartbeat that structures the transition from day to night. Next comes the careful arrangement of bedding. Hides are laid out with precision, layered according to thickness and thermal properties. Stones, warmed by the fire, are placed strategically to radiate heat, filling gaps beneath extremities or beneath the central layers. Furs are positioned for insulation, with longer hairs oriented outward to repel drafts, and shorter hairs facing inward to preserve warmth. Each placement is deliberate, a small act of engineering learned from experience rather than instruction. Over time, the rhythm of these movements becomes almost meditative, a gentle preparation for sleep. Clothing adjustments accompany the bedding. Furs and hides worn during the day are rearranged or replaced with softer, warmer layers intended for rest. Hoods are pulled over heads, mittens are removed or tucked near the body, and excess layers are folded to create additional thermal pockets. These changes are subtle but significant, providing incremental improvements to warmth and comfort. In this way, evening settling is both physical and ritualistic, a series of deliberate gestures that prepare the body to conserve energy throughout the long, cold night. The positioning of individuals within the bedding follows naturally. Those who generate more heat, such as hunters or adults accustomed to extended exposure, occupy central positions where warmth can radiate outward. Children, elders, or those weakened by illness are nestled close, benefiting from the heat produced by others while contributing their own slowly. The arrangement is flexible yet precise, adapting to the specific circumstances of the evening while adhering to an unspoken logic perfected over generations. Every placement ensures that energy is conserved efficiently, that the collective body heat works harmoniously, and that no one is left exposed. The ritual also includes food and hydration considerations. Small portions of stored or cooked food may be consumed to provide internal warmth, slow-burning energy, and comfort. Water, if available, is carefully rationed and warmed slightly near the fire to prevent shocking the body when consumed. These acts are deliberate, slow, and performed in tandem with the other steps of evening settling, reinforcing the integration and preparation for rest. During the ritual, attention is also paid to the cave's microclimate. Drafts near entrances are blocked with extra furs or stones. Minor cracks are covered, and the overall arrangement ensures that the interior remains as stable and warm as possible. You do not merely respond to the cold, you anticipate it. Evening settling is a preemptive strike against the Ice Age's relentless chill, a slow, deliberate orchestration that transforms the cave from a bare shelter into a sanctuary. There is also a subtle psychological element to the ritual. The act of preparing for sleep, of arranging the environment and coordinating with companions, signals to the mind that danger has been managed, that warmth is secured, and that survival for the next several hours is likely. It is a slow reassurance, an almost hypnotic affirmation that allows the body to relax, breathing too slow, and consciousness to drift. The ritual itself becomes a cue for the nervous system, a predictable sequence that encourages sleep and reinforces security. Shared sounds and movements play a role as well. The soft exhalations of companions, the faint crackle of embers, and the occasional shift of bodies contribute to a rhythm that is both sensory and social. These cues reinforce the collective understanding that the group is settled, that heat has been distributed, and that the night is prepared. Over time, these auditory and tactile signals become integrated into the ritual, guiding each individual into a calm, sleep-ready state without conscious thought. Even minor details are significant. A fold of hide tucked under a wrist or ankle can prevent heat loss. Stones slightly repositioned can radiate warmth to extremities more effectively. Loose pieces of fur can be used to block drafts or create additional insulation. Every motion, every adjustment contributes to a layered system of warmth that is both practical and ritualistic. It is slow, deliberate, and exacting, a nightly ceremony in which every action matters. Finally, the act of lying down after clothing, bedding, food, and fire have been arranged complete the ritual. The body is enveloped in layers. Heat is shared among companions. Residual warmth from the fire permeates the bedding, and the mind registers a sense of security. The cave has been transformed into a carefully engineered haven, the culmination of deliberate steps repeated nightly over generations. In this cocoon, the body can rest deeply, recover from exertion, and prepare for another day in the Ice Age. The ritual of evening settling is therefore both practical and symbolic. It is an acknowledgement that survival requires preparation, coordination, and observation. It is a slow, deliberate dance of movement, placement, and care that allows warmth to be maintained, energy conserved, and sleep achieved. Each action, no matter how small, contributes to a system that has been perfected over countless winters. By following this ritual, the inhabitants of the cave do more than prepare for the night. They participate in a slow, enduring tradition of Ice Age survival, one that combines observation, practice, and quiet, persistent patience. As you settle into the final position, breathing slowly, feeling warmth from furs, the long winter night awaits outside, indifferent and harsh. But inside, the ritual has ensured safety, warmth, and a slow, steady preparation for sleep. The body relaxes completely, the mind follows, and the Ice Age, at least for this night, has been gently managed, tamed, and respected through the quiet, meticulous ritual of evening settling. The Ice Age is relentless, and no matter how carefully you prepare with furs, hides, shared body heat, and fire, the threat of cold drafts is always present. Drafts are subtle, insidious, often imperceptible until they reach your skin and steal warmth in the quietest hours of the night. Protecting against them is not a matter of guesswork, but careful observation, preparation, and a slow, methodical approach that has been refined over generations. In the cave, no crack, no crevice, and no gap is ignored, because even the smallest intrusion of cold can disturb sleep and sap energy over time. The first defense against drafts is the careful selection of sleeping spots. You quickly learn which areas of the cave are naturally shielded from wind. The deep recesses, corners blocked by rock formations, or locations slightly elevated above the cave floor are preferred because cold air tends to sink and flow along the lowest points. Observing the subtle patterns of wind, noticing the shifts of snow and the way air moves across surfaces, allows you to anticipate where cold is likely to enter. Choosing the right spot is as critical as any layer of clothing or bedding. Next comes the use of extra hides and furs. These are not just bedding, but active barriers against movement of air. Hides are placed strategically along cave walls, around bedding, and near entrances to create buffer zones. Sometimes they are hung vertically to block drafts from above, or folded multiple times to cover gaps along the floor. The texture and thickness of the hides matter. Long-haired furs tend to trap more air, providing insulation, while smoother surfaces act as windbreaks. Each layer adds resistance, slowing the cold and redirecting it away from sleeping areas. Drafts are also managed with careful layering of bedding. Thicker furs are placed on the sides exposed to potential air movement, and smaller pieces are tucked under or around extremities, feet, hands, neck, and even the face are vulnerable. So, additional padding or fur strips are often used to insulate these points. Minor adjustments in layering, such as tucking one edge of a hide under another or folding it back slightly, can drastically reduce the intrusion of cold. These are small, almost imperceptible changes, but they are the product of observation and repeated experience. The positioning of individuals within the bedding also serves as a draft barrier. Those closest to the source of potential cold, the cave entrance, gaps in walls, or near cracks in stone, often lie in positions that shield others. The warmth from their bodies acts as a secondary layer, offsetting minor drafts that might seep into the cave. Even the slightest movement of an arm or leg can close a tiny gap, redirecting airflow. Over time, these subtle adjustments become instinctive, a form of slow choreography that maximizes the comfort of the entire group. Even the fire plays a role in draft protection. Placement of embers, logs, and stones is deliberate, creating zones of warm air that counteract incoming cold. The positioning of fire relative to bedding ensures that residual heat flows into areas most likely to be affected by drafts. Sometimes, a gentle shift in embers or stones is enough to redirect subtle air currents away from vulnerable spots. The cave, the fire, and the bedding form an interconnected system, each element influencing the other, producing a microclimate even in the presence of persistent cold. Observation is key. You learn to recognize signs of drafts, a sudden chill along a stone floor, a faint movement of smoke from the fire, or the subtle ripple of furs and bedding. These cues indicate that air is moving where it should not, prompting slow, careful adjustments. Extra hides may be repositioned, bedding layers folded differently, or bodies shifted slightly to close gaps. Even the angle of a hood, the placement of a hand, or the positioning of a knee can change the effectiveness of the barrier. Nothing is left to chance. Seasonal variations affect draft management as well. In milder winters, minor gaps may be tolerated as the cold air has less impact on body temperature. In the harshest months, when the wind howls and snow presses against the cave entrance, every precaution is taken. Extra furs, additional stone placements, and strategic positioning become critical. The nightly ritual of preparing against drafts adapts to the environment, reflecting an intimate understanding of temperature, wind, and the subtle interaction between air and materials. The psychological effect of draft management is significant. Knowing that gaps have been covered, that extra layers are in place, and that fire, bedding, and bodies are arranged to counteract airflow allows the mind to relax. Sleep can proceed without constant anticipation of cold, without subconscious tension. This mental calm is as important as the physical barrier itself, because the body conserves energy more effectively when it is not fighting sudden chill, allowing deeper, more restorative sleep. Protecting against drafts is also communal. Individuals communicate non-verbally through subtle adjustments, body shifts, and shared warmth. One person's repositioning may redirect airflow in a way that benefits others nearby. The ritual of settling and guarding against cold is therefore not solely individual. It is a collective practice requiring awareness of both environment and companions. The cave becomes a shared system of warmth, a living, breathing environment where each participant contributes to overall comfort. Finally, the culmination of all these efforts, careful selection of location, layering of hides, strategic fire placement, positioning of bodies, and subtle nightly adjustments, results in a cave interior that is surprisingly insulated against even persistent cold. As you lie down, cocooned in furs, close to companions, with residual heat from embers circulating around you, the draft is minimized to near imperceptibility. The night may still be long, and harsh outside, but inside you are protected. Sleep arrives slowly but surely, uninterrupted by the intrusion of cold air, a quiet testament to Ice Age wisdom and the patient management of environment, materials, and human cooperation. The cave itself is more than just a shelter from wind, snow, and predators. It is a tool, a natural structure whose features can be manipulated to maximize warmth, safety, and comfort. Understanding its topography, the uneven floors, the recesses, ledges, and slopes, is essential for survival. You learn slowly, through trial, observation, and quiet reflection, how to arrange bedding, fire, and movement within the cave to take full advantage of its natural design. Each nook and cranny becomes part of a carefully orchestrated system that transforms raw rock into a sanctuary from the Ice Age. Recesses and alcoves are particularly valuable. These natural indentations in the cave walls offer protection from wind and drafts. By situating bedding within these areas, you reduce exposure to the harshest currents of cold air. Over time, patterns become apparent. Certain depressions are consistently warmer. Certain ledges collect residual heat, and some areas remain drier despite snow melting outside. Observing these patterns requires patience. You notice the subtle differences in temperature and moisture, the way sound travels differently in alcoves, and the impact of stone angles on air movement. Elevation is also crucial. Cold air sinks, so slightly raised ledges or natural platforms within the cave provide a position above the coldest zones. You arrange bedding on these raised areas to ensure that drafts from lower areas do not seep upward. Stones may be placed strategically to create terraces or to support hides and furs, amplifying the insulation provided by elevation. Even small variations in height make a measurable difference over hours of sleep, demonstrating that survival often hinges on subtle, deliberate adjustments rather than brute force solutions. The cave's natural contours also influence fire placement. Certain corners or ledges reflect heat more effectively, radiating warmth across bedding areas without requiring additional fuel. You learn to position embers and stones in relation to these features, creating zones where residual heat lingers long after the flames have dimmed. The acoustic properties also enhance comfort, with sound from the fire and companions echoing, gently providing an additional layer of reassurance throughout the night. Floor texture and composition matter as well. Uneven or porous surfaces may allow cold to seep upward or create gaps beneath hides that reduce insulation. You compensate by layering additional furs or placing flat stones to create stable, insulated surfaces. In some cases, depressions in the floor are filled with small rocks or packed earth to elevate bedding and prevent contact with cold, damp surfaces. Each adjustment, though small, is deliberate, maximizing the cave's natural features while minimizing exposure to its potential drawbacks. Natural barriers such as stalagmites, rock formations, and overhangs are also incorporated into nightly arrangements. These features provide additional protection against drafts, serve as windbreaks, or offer structural support for hides and furs. You learn to drape layers over ledges or tuck bedding against irregular surfaces to create microclimates of warmth. The cave's structure becomes an active participant in survival strategy, not merely a passive shelter, and careful observation allows you to exploit these advantages fully. Water, drainage, and moisture patterns within the cave are subtle but significant. Natural slopes and channels, direct melted snow, or seepage from overhead, which, if ignored, could infiltrate bedding and chill the body. Observing where water tends to flow or pool allows you to position bedding safely and to create minor barriers using stones or extra hides. Moisture management is essential. Even a single damp patch beneath a sleeping area can compromise insulation and disrupt the slow, restorative sleep so vital during harsh winters. Spatial organization also plays a role in social structure and shared warmth. Bedding is often arranged so that individuals naturally form a cluster in the most protected zones, while those less vulnerable occupy peripheral areas that are still insulated but slightly cooler. The natural layout of the cave, its curves, alcoves, and elevations dictate the most efficient arrangement for warmth and security. Over generations, these patterns become tradition, slowly refined into a practical choreography that maximizes comfort for the entire group. Even the cave ceiling is not ignored. Low-hanging formations may direct airflow or provide small pockets where heat accumulates. Overhanging rocks can serve as supports for additional layers of hide, creating enclosed areas that trap warm air. Every feature of the cave is examined with intent, considered for its potential to enhance warmth, reduce drafts, or provide comfort. Knowledge of topography becomes second nature, embedded in intuition, shaping nightly routines and the subtle management of bedding and fire. Lighting is affected by topography as well. Shadows cast by ledges, recesses, and overhangs influence where residual fire heat accumulates. By understanding how light and warmth interact with stone surfaces, you position bedding, stones, and hides to optimize thermal retention. The cave becomes a living, responsive environment, one that communicates information about safety, comfort, and warmth through its contours and surfaces. Each night, the subtle manipulation of these elements reinforces a slow, deliberate mastery over the environment. Finally, the cave's topography interacts with other survival strategies, including fire-enhanced bedding, clothing adjustments, and draft management. The combination of natural features and human arrangement produces a multi-layered system of warmth, insulation, and security. You lie down within this environment, furs tucked, fire embers radiating, and companions pressed close. And the cave's contours help maintain a stable microclimate. Over hours of night, subtle heat currents flow along ledges, through alcoves, and across bedding, keeping the body insulated while promoting slow, restorative sleep. The mastery of cave topography is therefore both practical and ritualistic. Observation, patience, and careful adjustment create a consistent system of protection against the Ice Age's relentless cold. Every depression, ledge, slope, and overhang is noted, incorporated into routines, and combined with other survival strategies to maximize comfort. By leveraging natural features in conjunction with bedding, fire, and clothing, the inhabitants of the cave create a living environment tailored to their needs, ensuring warmth, safety, and the deep, restorative sleep required for survival. As you settle fully into this arranged sanctuary, aware of the cave's natural benefits, the residual warmth from fire and bedding, and the shared heat of companions, the harshness of the Ice Age night fades into a background hum. The cave, shaped by time and selectively enhanced by careful human management, provides a slow, steady rhythm of comfort and security. You breathe slowly, relax completely, and drift toward sleep, your body enveloped in the combined wisdom of nature and human adaptation, resting within the contours of the cave's natural topography. The Ice Age teaches that warmth is not merely an individual endeavor. Survival depends on cooperation, and one of the most subtle but effective strategies is companion heat sharing. Bodies pressed together create a slow, consistent transfer of heat, amplifying the effectiveness of bedding, fire, and furs. This is not casual contact. It is a carefully orchestrated system, learned through observation, necessity, and repeated experience. Understanding how to share warmth safely and efficiently becomes a crucial skill for enduring long winter nights. The principle is simple. Close physical proximity reduces exposed surface area and allows bodies to act as mutual heaters. Hands, arms, shoulders, and torsos are aligned to maximize contact, while extremities like feet and fingers are often tucked together or against warmer parts of another body. This method not only preserves heat but distributes it evenly, ensuring that no one is left cold while others remain warm. Over time, these techniques become instinctive, a nightly choreography of position and alignment performed with quiet, deliberate care. Strategic positioning within the group enhances the effectiveness of shared heat. Those with greater physical resilience or better circulation often occupy outer positions where cold is most likely to intrude, while the more vulnerable, children, elders, or those weakened by fatigue, are nestled in the center, receiving warmth from multiple sources. This arrangement is flexible and adaptable, responding to the specific composition of the group and the severity of the night's cold. Even small shifts in body placement can significantly affect overall warmth, demonstrating the precision inherent in this seemingly simple strategy. The arrangement of bedding complements companion heat sharing. Hides and furs are layered to create thermal pockets between bodies, reducing the escape of warmth and enhancing comfort. Stones or fire-warmed surfaces may be positioned to radiate heat toward central members of the group, reinforcing the collective benefit of shared body heat. Each element interacts with the others, producing a holistic system of insulation where human warmth becomes a living, dynamic part of the cave's environment. This system is also attentive to the movement of air. Bodhies are positioned to block drafts from cave entrances or minor gaps, creating barriers that slow cold currents. Arms and legs may be subtly adjusted to close minor openings in bedding layers, while heads are often aligned with hoods or furs to prevent heat loss. In this way, companion heat sharing does more than transfer warmth. It actively interacts with other defensive measures, enhancing the stability and comfort of the entire group. The psychological benefits are equally important. Physical closeness reinforces a sense of safety, cooperation, and trust. In an environment where survival is uncertain, knowing that warmth is shared reduces anxiety, allows the mind to relax, and supports deeper, more restorative sleep. The body can focus on conserving energy rather than combating isolated cold spots, and the mind can drift into the slow, steady rhythm that Ice Age nights demand. Shared warmth is therefore as much a social and emotional strategy as it is a physical one. Timing and preparation are crucial for maximizing companion heat. As evening progresses, bodies are slowly adjusted to optimal positions, bedding is rearranged, and minor gaps are filled with extra furs. Small movements, nearly imperceptible, allow heat to circulate efficiently. Over hours of night, these adjustments continue subtly, responding to shifts in temperature, changes in body position, and the slow migration of warmth through bedding layers. The rhythm of shared heat becomes a quiet, continuous process, almost imperceptible but profoundly effective. Even small details have an impact. The orientation of a head, the overlap of an arm, or the positioning of a knee can create localized thermal pockets, and the collective body mass stabilizes temperatures across the group. Over time, these small but deliberate adjustments produce a consistent microclimate that significantly reduces heat loss, even in the harshest conditions. The practice of companion heat sharing is also communal learning. Younger or less experienced members observe and gradually adopt the patterns, learning how to align, tuck, and adjust without explicit instruction. Over time, knowledge of effective positioning, layering, and subtle adjustment becomes intuitive, transmitted through action rather than words. This slow, patient education ensures that survival skills are maintained across generations, quietly integrated into the rhythm of nightly preparation. Shared heat also interacts with other Ice Age strategies. Fire-enhanced bedding, strategic layering of hides, and careful use of cave topography all augment the effect, producing a multi-layered system of warmth. The human body becomes a component of the broader thermal network, transferring energy from one individual to another, amplifying the effectiveness of physical materials and stabilizing the environment. It is a living system of cooperation, patience, and careful observation. By the time you settle fully, the bodies of companions pressed close, hides layered precisely, embers radiating residual heat, and drafts minimized, the combined system is complete. Warmth circulates slowly and evenly. The mind recognizes security, and the body can finally relax completely. Every minor adjustment, every deliberate placement, and every shared breath contributes to a sense of calm and comfort. The night is long, but the collective strategies ensure that sleep can proceed without interruption, allowing the body to recover and prepare for the challenges of the Ice Age day. Companion heat sharing is therefore both a practical and symbolic act. It reflects cooperation, observation, and adaptation, a recognition that survival in the Ice Age is rarely solitary. Warmth is shared, knowledge is transmitted, and comfort is collectively maintained. The night becomes manageable, not through isolation or brute force, but through a slow, deliberate coordination of body, bedding, fire, and environment. Together, the group forms a system more resilient than any individual, a living network of warmth that carries everyone through the cold hours. As your eyes finally close with bodies pressed together, furs and hides layered perfectly, and fire-enhanced bedding radiating gentle heat, the effectiveness of companion heat sharing is evident. The cold, harsh world outside the cave feels distant, almost irrelevant. Within this cocoon of warmth, trust, and careful preparation, the Ice Age night has been subdued, transformed into a slowly flowing environment that nurtures deep, restorative sleep. The body relaxes fully, the mind follows, and the quiet rhythm of shared warmth carries you gently into the long frozen hours of night. Even after all the careful preparation, fire-enhanced bedding, companion heat sharing, strategic layering of furs, and protection against drafts, there remains a final, subtle stage: the last-minute adjustments before sleep. These are small, deliberate actions performed slowly, almost unconsciously. A quiet ritual that ensures every element of comfort is optimized. In the harsh Ice Age environment, even minor misalignments can disturb warmth or interrupt the long hours of rest. So these adjustments, though subtle, are crucial. The process begins with tactile evaluation. You run your hands over the bedding, feeling for uneven surfaces, misplaced furs, or hidden stones. A small lump beneath a hide or a gap near an extremity can be corrected before settling fully. The placement of each fur, the orientation of hairs, and the overlap between layers are reassessed. Stones warmed by the fire are nudged slightly to radiate heat into the coldest zones. Each movement is careful, deliberate, and slow, reinforcing a sense of control over the environment. Clothing is also checked one last time. Hoods are adjusted to cover the head without pressing uncomfortably against the face. Sleeves and mittens are positioned to allow minimal heat loss, and extra layers are tucked carefully around vulnerable areas. Minor changes in orientation: an arm slightly closer to the body, a knee angled differently, or a foot repositioned can enhance insulation. These small tweaks may seem insignificant, but their cumulative effect is noticeable over the long hours of night, making the difference between restlessness and deep restorative sleep. Companion positioning is revisited as well. A subtle shift can reduce gaps between bodies, optimize the distribution of shared heat, and create additional thermal pockets. You may adjust the angle of a torso, move a hand to block a draft, or slightly shift a leg to press against a warmer companion. These micro-adjustments are unspoken but instinctive, a slow choreography that reinforces the collective efficiency of shared warmth. Over time, these movements become second nature, a nightly dance that combines comfort with survival strategy. Attention is also paid to the cave's microclimate. Slight drafts, unnoticed earlier, may be blocked with extra furs or small stones. The placement of embers or residual coals may be tweaked to direct gentle heat toward colder areas. Even the distribution of moisture in bedding is assessed, ensuring that damp patches do not threaten insulation. These adjustments, while minor, demonstrate a profound understanding of the cave environment and the ability to anticipate and correct small disruptions before they can affect rest. Noise is subtly managed. Companions may be repositioned to reduce creaking of hides, or small adjustments are made to minimize contact with shifting stones. The gentle hum of fire and the slow murmur of the cave are allowed to continue, reinforcing a rhythm of calm, but louder, disruptive noises are minimized. This careful attention to the auditory environment complements thermal management, creating a holistic system of comfort designed to maximize sleep quality. Mental preparation is also part of the last-minute ritual. As the body is adjusted, the mind follows, recognizing that every precaution has been taken. The combination of warmth, insulation, sound, and security signals that the environment is safe, allowing tension to release. Awareness of minor risks remains, but anxiety diminishes. The Ice Age night, harsh and unpredictable outside, becomes filtered through layers of preparation and observation, perceived as manageable, even gentle within the cave. The process of last-minute adjustments can also include minor environmental optimization. Slight shifts in stones or hides can redirect airflow subtly, redirecting cold currents or enhancing residual warmth. The positioning of smaller furs used as buffers or draft blockers may be fine-tuned. Even the angle at which the body lies on layered hides affects how heat circulates through the system. These incremental changes, performed slowly and deliberately, cumulatively enhance the effectiveness of every previously applied survival strategy. Lighting and fire are also accounted for. Even the dim glow of residual embers is evaluated. Do they radiate warmth evenly? Are small sparks positioned safely away from bedding? Is the smoke minimal enough to allow breathing without loss of heat? Subtle adjustments to ember placement are made to ensure that fire continues to support warmth without creating hazards, reinforcing the careful balance between energy management and environmental safety. Finally, once all physical and environmental factors are optimized, the body is fully settled. Extremities are tucked, bedding layers smoothed, companions positioned optimally, and the mind acknowledges that the night is secure. This moment marks the transition from preparation to rest. Every small adjustment, every careful tweak has contributed to a system of warmth, insulation, and security. The cave, furs, fire, and companions are aligned in a slow, deliberate harmony designed to carry the body safely through the long hours of Ice Age night. In this final stage, the mind and body synchronize with the environment. Breathing slows, heart rate stabilizes, and consciousness begins to drift. The cumulative effect of preparation, from fire-enhanced bedding to draft management, from companion heat sharing to precise utilization of the cave's topography, reaches its peak. The body is fully supported, insulated, and warmed, while the mind, reassured by predictable environmental rhythms, begins to relax completely. Sleep arrives naturally, slowly, and uninterrupted, guided by the subtle cues of warmth, sound, and shared comfort. The last-minute adjustments before sleep are therefore both practical and symbolic. They reflect careful observation, patience, and mastery over a challenging environment. They demonstrate the interconnection of all previous strategies, ensuring that the body is ready for the long, cold night ahead. The ritual emphasizes that survival is not a single act, but a continuous process of anticipation, adaptation, and meticulous attention to detail. It is the quiet culmination of knowledge, practice, and slow, deliberate care. As you finally lie fully still, with every adjustment complete, the cave around you, a cocoon of fire-warmed stones, layered furs, and shared human heat, the Ice Age night becomes manageable. The residual chill outside is filtered, softened, and largely irrelevant. In this carefully prepared microclimate, your body can rest fully, the mind can drift calmly, and sleep flows slowly, uninterrupted and deeply. The ritual of last-minute adjustments ensures that warmth, comfort, and security persist, guiding you gently into the long hours of night. Morning in the cave arrives slowly. It is never sudden, never bright, never hurried. The first light filters through the cave entrance, soft and pale, reflecting off snow, dust, and ice to create a gentle illumination that barely stirs the senses. The fire, reduced to glowing embers overnight, provides faint residual warmth, radiating slowly across bedding and stone. The bodies of companions shift gently, exhaling soft, synchronized breaths that mark the slow rhythm of life within the cave. The day begins not with urgency, but with a measured awareness, a calm awakening to the Ice Age world outside. Your body feels the accumulated effects of the night. Muscles are rested, tension has dissolved, and the warmth shared by companions, retained by furs, and enhanced by fire, has carried you safely through hours of sub-zero temperatures. There is a quiet satisfaction in recognizing that all the careful preparation of the previous night, strategic bedding, draft prevention, companion heat sharing, and last-minute adjustments has worked. Each detail contributed to comfort, to warmth, and to uninterrupted sleep. It is a subtle, almost unspoken triumph, the reward for patience, observation, and slow, deliberate care. The first movements are minimal and cautious. Hands extend slowly to check the position of furs or the warmth of stones. Feet are repositioned to maximize residual heat. You adjust slightly to avoid drafts or contact with colder surfaces. Companions, still partially asleep, shift in response, creating a gentle, shared rhythm of movement. There is no rush, no sudden energy. The cave, with its layered warmth and carefully arranged bedding, continues to cradle all present, making even the act of waking a measured, gradual process. The fire, though reduced to embers, is attended again. Small, careful additions of fuel may be made to coax a gentle flame, enough to provide additional warmth without disturbing the calm of the cave. The placement of embers is deliberate. They radiate heat toward central members of the group, fill cold zones left by shifting bodies, and slowly expand warmth into the corners of bedding areas. Even as the day begins, the fire remains a subtle, living participant in the cycle of survival, its warmth both physical and comforting. Observations of the cave environment continue. You notice subtle changes in air movement, temperature, and moisture that occurred overnight. Drafts may have shifted, minor snow seeped in, or ice melted slightly. These observations are quiet, almost meditative, and they inform adjustments in bedding, clothing, and positioning. Over generations, these small observations became accumulated knowledge, slowly transmitted, ensuring that each new morning is met with awareness, preparation, and care. The cave itself is read like a text, revealing insights about both environment and human strategy. Companion awareness is gently re-established. Shared warmth is maintained as bodies gradually stretch and adjust, a slow negotiation of comfort and space. The social bonds, reinforced overnight through heat, proximity, and subtle communication, continue to influence movements. The positioning of each individual is a combination of instinct, learned behavior, and careful observation, ensuring that warmth is maintained even as activity begins. Ice Age mornings are communal as much as nights, marked by shared vigilance and cooperation. Food and hydration become part of the morning ritual. Small portions of stored or preserved food are consumed to replenish energy, often warmed near residual fire embers to provide additional comfort. Water, if available, may be gathered from melting snow or slow drips, sometimes slightly heated to prevent shocking cold. These small, deliberate acts are extensions of the nightly routine, a continuation of careful observation, nutrition, and deliberate action. Nutrition is not merely sustenance. It is an integral part of the slow, continuous cycle of survival. Reflection accompanies these movements. You consider the efficiency of the previous night's arrangements, the bedding layers, the placement of furs, the effectiveness of companion heat sharing, and the strategic use of cave topography. Every detail is assessed quietly, often unconsciously, forming mental notes for improvement. Ice Age survival is iterative, relying on observation, memory, and careful adaptation. Each morning provides insight into what worked, what could be refined, and how best to approach the next night. Reflection becomes as much a survival tool as fire or furs, guiding action through accumulated wisdom. The cave sounds also shape the morning experience. Dripping water, the occasional shifting of stones, and the faint murmur of wind outside provide a gentle soundtrack, signaling that the environment remains active but manageable. These familiar sounds, once perhaps alarming, are now indicators of stability, confirming that the careful management of warmth and positioning has succeeded. The auditory environment reinforces security, providing reassurance that the night passed without incident and that the cave remains a safe, controlled environment. The morning is also a time to adjust for the day ahead. Clothing is reorganized, hides and furs are collected or prepared for transport, and firewood may be gathered or arranged for continued use. Small, deliberate tasks are performed slowly, carefully, and deliberately, with minimal urgency. The pace is dictated not by the rush of time, but by the practicalities of survival. Every action is measured, reinforcing both physical comfort and mental calm, ensuring that the body transitions smoothly from rest to alertness. Finally, there is a moment of quiet observation. You note the outside world, the snow, the wind, and the distant landscape. Awareness of the harshness beyond the cave is tempered by the calm, measured environment within. You reflect on the skill, patience, and careful preparation that enabled a night of safety, warmth, and restorative sleep. The cave, companions, fire, and careful rituals have carried you through the night. The day ahead remains uncertain, but the repeated practice of observation, adjustment, and cooperation provides both confidence and reassurance. Morning awakening in the Ice Age, therefore, is not sudden or energetic. It is a slow, deliberate process, a continuation of the careful attention given to survival during the night. Warmth is maintained, the mind relaxes, and energy is conserved. Reflection reinforces knowledge, guiding both minor adjustments and larger strategies. The cave, companions, fire, and environment form an interconnected system whose careful orchestration allows humans to endure, thrive, and continue the endless cycle of preparation, observation, and adaptation. As you finally rise, stretching slowly and feeling the warmth of furs, fire, and shared bodies, the Ice Age outside seems less forbidding. Each winter night and subsequent morning reinforces lessons, observation, and subtlety. Survival is not dramatic or sudden. It is a slow, deliberate rhythm of small adjustments, careful attention, and cooperation. The morning light, pale and filtered, marks the continuity of life. The success of preparation and the quiet triumph of enduring yet another frozen night.